welcome to our second afternoon session in the European space. As some of people may have heard me say this already, nevertheless, my name is David. I've been asked to be a facilitator. The two basics for me are about timekeeping, so we will finish at 5 minutes past 3, and the other is no fighting. So that's all he asked me to do. So I'll ask for respect in listening and respect in speaking, and I believe you're going to ask for constructive, generative ideas and criticism.
Yes.
So that particularly generative ideas. I might do more if we're asked for more, but now over to Lucie to talk about more.
Hi. Do you mind me sitting down?
No.
Oh, great.
Don't mind.
So, I'm Lucie, and today we're going to talk about the Mobility Factory. And the Mobility Factory is yet to be born. I'm heavily pregnant. I'm giving birth in September to the Co-op of Co-ops, which is the Mobility Factory, which is a pure platform cooperative that is the platform to enable everywhere in Europe for every local citizens cooperative or otherwise citizens initiative to actually have electric car sharing in the village, the cities, wherever you want. Now, first of all, why would we have a platform for electric car sharing? There are many car sharing platforms already, but first of all, we chose to found Partago, which is the local electric car sharing cooperative, and we soon came to the conclusion that we had to write our own platform. So the first thing was to have a better city, a cleaner city, a more silent city with less cars, and we chose sustainable car mobility as a definition, but we describe it as saying, look, we have to reduce the individual cars, we have to use electric cars but with renewable energy, and we also want to couple it, and we need to couple it with the decentral production and consumption of renewable energy, because those electric cars are also just batteries on wheels and can function in a smart grid story. Now, why did we write, next to finding our first car, we've funded our first car. In Ghent there's about 25 cars running. On the platform in total there are about 50, 55 cars running. And now we're gonna go big, that is, I want 20,000 cars in 5 years' time to run through on the platform from through the Mobility Factory. Now, why a platform for electric mobility? One, no one could provide us with a specific platform and a specific back office for electric car sharing, and moreover, we chose a cooperative model. And that is crucial in all what is to come with the Mobility Factory. Why a cooperative platform? Why a cooperative platform? Because we want both the data and the code to be collectively owned, but not totally open. It's a commons, which means it's commons, collective, contributive, but with a governance structure, in that case a cooperative structure. Secondly, I wanted to raise capital, huge amounts of capital, because I want to move capital as fast as I can and as much as I can from one side of the economy, one way of doing things, to the next way of doing things, which is, I'm an anti-capitalist loving capital. And that is important because one of the things we did already is we have a cooperation with Som Mobilitat, which is a electric car sharing cooperative founded after we existed in Mataró near Barcelona, and they co-write the code. And the first thing I installed was, you're not going to write code for nothing, not on my watch. So I promised that everybody, in the end, all contributions would be paid. And to be able to do that, we started off by time bank. So we're time banking all the code writing, and that time bank then, through the Mobility Factory, finally gets translated into money and also distributed in the correct way. But that's details for later. So the cooperative platform is collective ownership, data control, and some more things. So what are we going to deliver? We're going to have a range of services for local electric car sharing. So the business model is very simple. You have cars, you have maintenance, insurance, blah, blah, blah. We will provide all the solutions for any local energy coop or even a food coop or any citizens initiative that wants to do electric car sharing anywhere in Europe. But you have to be a member of the Mobility Factory. You're going to be a member-based organization, so a cooperative of cooperatives, or a client can also be an organization that works along ICA principles, because, for example, in Denmark, I didn't know that before, there's no such thing as a cooperative structure. So it's especially designed for coops. For example, we designed a swap function for cars. So our cars, they have zones, and it's like a neighborhood. 2-3 streets is a neighborhood, it's a zone. And you see the car, everything's on the app. So you see the car, where it is. You walk, you want the car, you think, okay, I make a reservation or I want it now. Then you walk to the car, you use it, and when you come back, you don't have to park it in the same spot. You can leave it at your front door in its right zone. So it's a free float, but not on a city level, but on a very, local level. So actually, it provides also social control, because kind of know the neighbors who are corporate, so you kind of know each other, which is helping incredibly on maintaining the cars and having fair use, not coming in late and stuff like that. So it's not the same relationship. So with the final user, we have a triple relationship that is that of user, that of co-owner of the means of production, the cars, so they really feel it's my car, and 3, of governance, so they can cast me away each year, at least once. So it's incredible flexible, so you can combine time slots, cars and user groups in the back office. So we have like company cars for Monday to Friday on the platform for a user group, which is co-workers, and then we have like on Friday night it's to the user group members of the cooperative or neighborhood members of the cooperative or whatever group they decide on. So the system itself, I put 2 pictures of my colleague co-founders. They're my geek guys. I'm just, business mother. So those 2 are actually owning the idea and writing all the software, and he writes it together with the developers in Spain and wherever in the world that we have developers now. So it does everything. The app, it closes, you can open and close the doors, you can make a reservation, you can buy, it's like a phone, you can buy driving time, like user time. You can trace, you can swap the cars, so when it's empty, you come back into the city, you drive to a car that is already charged, and then you switch cars and you park the full car in your neighborhood, and then the next one can use it again, for example. So there's a lot of features, which means that the development is a never-ending story, which means that the R&D cost of all that is way too heavy for this local Partago 25-car thingy initiative. So that's why it's so important to scale up, and also to be early enough in the market to become the standard for European e-car sharing initiatives, as long as they're cooperative and not exploitative. So that's what we do. The Mobility Factory, yes, it's for cooperative. So every client, that is every cooperative, is co-owning the Mobility Factory, but of course, because you have to be a real cooperative, you have to be a member of Rescope EU and sign this charter, which means that that cooperative has members. So indirectly, each of the end users of the app is actually indirectly co-owning the app, which is quite important to me. fair conditions for co-development. So for example, one of the challenges that I want to discuss is prioritization of features. Now, this is an important one. It's a lot to take in, but it's my, shop. Is how to finance it. We've been talking about money. For me, a couple of rules. One, mixed finance. It's no use only being, let's only finance through the crowd. Crowdfunding is a long process. Cooperative money behaves slowly, great, but is also slowly to come in. And sometimes you need a huge amount of capital very fast. So only citizens' money is not going to cut it if you want to be, early enough and big enough to really, make an impact. Therefore, a lot of cooperatives, especially that type of cooperatives, have multi-stakeholder approach and therefore have more than one chamber. The house has more than one room. So you have A and B in this case, and also the shares and the voting rights are different in the two chambers, which is important. So it's about managing power relationships. Power relations are not bad, you just have to manage them well and do it through the statutes, because that's your concrete fundament, that's your basis for everything and anything. So, furthermore, capital should behave slowly, which is it should remain in the core for a long time. For example, in Partago, also in the mobility factory, you can't get out as a normal user. You have to have your shares 2 years, as an investor at least 4. So, meaning time to use the money well. Enough capital, the cap on the ROI is legally limited to 6%, so we're glad we had the law, we didn't have to invent it. It was a great way of saying remuneration of capital is as important as remuneration of any other means of production, but but with a certain cap and to a certain limit and within a certain time. So, it's not about not rewarding capital taking risks, it is about correctly rewarding and making sure that exploitation has not taken place during the process of making a profit in the first place. So, enough capital. It is true that you have to raise capital to finance the first losses. So you have to be able and daring to be cash burning. Because if you're not cash burning, you're not going to pay from day one what you have to pay. And before you know it, you're in a logic of, it must be possible even if we don't have the money. And then we're not professional, we're not socially just, we're not ecologically correct, and we're not going to make the impact that we want in the first place. So don't be afraid of money, go for it. Lots of it. It's only a means to a purpose. We just had a talk about money. We have heavy emotions about money. We attribute lots of qualities or evils to money. All those qualities and evils are the persons holding the money. So the morals of the capital are dead important for the morals of your business, but the morals are held by those holding the capital and not by the phenomenon of money itself. So now the time bank, the whole platform is owned by Partago in the first place and by Som Mobilitat, and the ratio is measured through the time bank. So literally 80% of the time bank is Partago's, 20% Som Mobilitat. That's exactly how it's going to be paid between the two organizations, because it's the mobility factory buying the code and paying to the two organizations who pre-finance the development in the first place.
Lucie, you asked me to imagine this 15 minutes.
It's 15 minutes? Okay. Voila. Now, what did I do with the time bank? And then we come to the challenges. The time bank, first measure the labor, time banking, then reward fairly, and then I created disparity shares. Disparity shares are shares that are not shares from the capital, but from the future revenue streams. And why do I transfer time banking in shares? Because through a system that I won't explain because I haven't got time, intrinsically it reduces the payment of the Spanish and the difference in payment between the Spanish, the Bulgarian, the Belgian and the Dutch developers. And it is redistributing the value created afterwards more evenly. Can you get that concept of? So it's a reduced disparity and it's a share in the later revenue streams, and through a whole set of rules we're going to be able to pay every hour ever in a time bank that is not paid when we took over or whatever. Then later, labor bus, so in due time, it's like delayed, so in due time, then it's cash. So I told that. The business model is very simple. Here you have the developers, the picture of the developers. There you have all sorts of small and big corporation cars users, There's a triple relationship there, just like the Partago. And locally, you either have users who want to use a car and then are looking to crowdfund, or we provide a car, or you have like a car that needs users. For example, municipalities buy electric cars and then ask us to run them, for the citizens on the platform to actually have use for the cars. And now the challenges. Now, the challenges is how to transfer the code from Partago to TMF. So with us, it's just the translation of the time bank and the value of the disparity shares handed out. So I'm still tweaking about how far apart can an hour's work of person A and person B be, knowing that in Belgium you can't live off a Spanish wage, and knowing that not everybody can be paid in Belgian wages because they're dead expensive. So that's a question. When and how to this? Well, I've let drop the disparity shares because it's complicated. I didn't tell enough about it. How about the different and local wages? So that's another way of putting the same question. How to agree what to develop. So we have some ideas. So I want to listen to more ideas like prioritization, about what the clients, coops want, what the developers want, how is it budgeted, etc. So any ideas on that, or questions on that, ideas preferably. And then what I'm wondering about is, because I'm not the developer or developers, I'm also asking, what do you reflect, or do you know of any measurement system to measure the social cost or social benefit of development? Because development has a time and therefore a cost, and that cost must be relevant not only to what you, because I heard yesterday, oh, but we like to develop or to write code, let us be. But sometimes I think, yeah, but could be huge societal cost to diverge all that energy, all that human capacity and all that potential to something that will either cost society or at least not be beneficial to the solutions that are ahead on the societal level. So that's a bit my question too. And oh yeah, and I do always internalization of cost, and that makes me expensive. And then people say, yeah, but the poor can't use your cars. And I say, no. First of all, the income of the poor must rise so they can actually use the car. So I pay all my people well, so they actually earn that much, so they can actually, so you have to up spiral the whole thing and not race to the bottom. And secondly, there's always I organize third-party payments. That is, we work with NGOs and other partners that actually have volunteer drivers pick up the elderly and the sick and the whatnot to do the shopping and whatnot with our cars.
You've got a cap on return on capital of 6%.
Yeah.
Are you finding, is there also a cap on voting rights with those shares, or do people who invest more have more votes, or is it cooperative shares?
Well, first of all, it's a real co-op. So yes, it's a co-op share because it's, but users, for example, in Partago you have investment shares. In the mobility factor, you have client shares, investment shares. So investment shares do behave differently. For example, there's one man, one vote overall, but in the B chamber of the mobility factory, we have a certain weight. That is, it's a middle rule, it's a 10% rule. That is, you have one share, one vote, but with a cap of 10% of all vote shares present. And there's the devaluation of the shares through the value is bookkeeping value with exit on the B shares, and it's nominal on the A shares.
And to follow up, if that's all right, has those restrictions affected investment, i.e. people putting money in?
Of course, because I don't want well, the thing is, I already refused money for the very simple reason that some money comes from the financial market. So the volume of the financial market money is 7,500 times bigger than any capital in the real economy. Realize that's thin air. We cannot legitimize that fake money, that fake wealth. And we have to keep it out of the real economy system. So the source of my capital is really important to it being sustainable and not contaminating my capital. So I only raise money from sources that are in the real economy. So if some say, oh yeah, I love, say that somebody falls in love and gives me $500,000 just, for my beautiful eyes, and says, look, I agree with 6%, but I give you say $500,000 and I got 500 mil, so what the heck? Then I will refuse his money because I know that it's not worth anything. Because when the money system crashes, I'm going to crash with it because $500,000 will go up in thin air once the money system crashes, and it will crash. So you have to be very precise where the money comes from.
Where does the money come from?
The capital, the revenue streams, like where does the money come from? People who pay or to buy shares?
The investment. You're saying you have to be precise with where the money comes from.
Yeah.
Where
So
does it come from?
a mixed capital means that first of all you have my first seed capital is always from citizens, because you have to know, dear world, do you want me to exist? Not what do I want to put into the world, but first test, is it okay that I exist? Do I, is there a need for you? I don't do push marketing, I only do pull marketing. Is there a signal in the market that says, hey, you're welcome? So first of all, my seed capital is citizens' money. So just you and me and everybody else who buys 1, 2, 3, 4 shares. Legally in Belgium, a citizen can never buy more than 5,000 euros worth of shares. Legally. It's to protect the consumer for being speculative with its own money. When you invest, in every email I put out to whoever, I always say, you invest from affordable loss, not potential gain. I don't want dramas. I don't want you, if we lose the money, I don't want you to come forward and say, hey, I lost money and now I'm having problems feeding my kids. I mean, don't. So, in my generation, in the baby boom generation, I'm the youngest of all the baby boomers, I can tell you, there's incredible amount of money. In Flanders alone, the whole savings account total is higher than the state debt. So this incredible amount of money that is not fake, that is there, that has been withdrawn. We are a cash-drained economy because everybody are sitting on their money. The banks don't do their jobs, and the rest is fake money or speculative money. So I need to activate as much citizens' capital as possible. 1. 2, of course, the cooperative world, ICA principle, needs there to be for one another. So I want to attract either institutional money or cooperative money, so from other cooperatives, especially from energy cooperatives who sit on a lot of money and are waiting years and years to be able to say build a windmill park, whatever, in between that money can be, put to good use, paid back, etc. And then the third one is actually, and to my own surprise, at the end of the day, the very rich are very sentimental people. They too are afraid of climate change. They too have life themes and emotions. They too are realizing that actually the capitalist system is running itself into the wall without my help. So a number of them are really, really ready for a paradigm shift, but don't know how to do that in a practical way, and for them in a way that is less risky. And that is true. I do have to explain how a spreaded risk and a cooperative structure means that in fact, chances are that you won't gain much money, but actually 90% of all cooperatives are there for forever. There's not that many. I have one cooperative that I co-founded that I have to dissolve, but from all other cooperatives, they're all still there.
I'm interested in sort of complementary ways of doing things. And so, for instance, I mean, this capital presumably is going to need, you're going to need it to buy cars. Yeah?
For the mobility factory, no. Huh?
No. So it's purely the code.
So the mobility factory, European one, is only code and services.
Okay. All right.
Locally,
Yeah.
Partago or all my little, sisters and brothers that are not exist.
Right.
Locally, they source cars, and they do it in different ways. Partago has corporates buying cars and leasing them to the cooperative. We have leased cars, we have bought cars, all sorts of reasons. So it's mixed.
I've been talking to some major car manufacturers. Volkswagen was one. Sorry, I was talking to major car manufacturers. Volkswagen was one of them at the conference recently. And I'm interested in what I call mobility as a service.
Oh, yeah.
So in other words, you actually get the car is not sold to you, it's provided to you, and basically it's a revenue sharing model. So you don't need the capital for that. But more to the point, it's essentially an energy return. So rather than it being a 6% return on capital, right, it would be a return on capital, it might be at a discount, but it's paid essentially in energy credits.
Yeah, I have to answer to that one. Because mobility as a service is like the big hype.
This isn't a hype, but it is at the minute. Yeah.
It's right now, it's a big hype.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be.
And the mobility factory, or in the pre-founders meetings of the mobility, because we still have to sign the deed and raise the money, so we're almost already raising the money, but formally we are not existent yet. I'm in labor. And so anyways, mass mobility as a service can be organized in an exploitive way, or in an extractive way, or in a contributive or non-exploitive way. So it's not about the services that are on the platform. For example, on our local Partago platform, soon you will buy your local train and tram ticket or whatever we can do with open data access, etc., etc. So in that sense, we are partly mobility as a service. But what we don't want to do is what the big manufacturers do, and it is, there are about 60,000 cars produced, never sold, and driven to the graveyard directly. And that over access of cars is just spread out over cities in the whole, and it's not accounted for financially in capital in the structure of the car sharing initiative that spread those cars. So the cars were actually leased for a symbolic euro to two youngsters. They built a platform, they said, I'm car sharing, and they threw 350 cars in Antwerp in a total free float. Within 2 weeks, you had 2 crashes, with one almost deadly, and lots of coke on the dashboard. We don't want it.
But that's my point. It's been done badly, but it could be done well, and I'm interested in how it could be done well. But the point I'm getting to is, you don't need to sell ownership. What you can do is actually have prepayment for revenues. So, if you like, your revenue credits. That's what Outlandish do, for instance. Outlandish are actually people prepay. Okay?
But we do have prepaid.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. You don't actually need to sell shares if you can get prepayment for your services.
No. Because it's not good governance. It's not, and it's not good bookkeeping. So no. We not on the level of the mobility, but on the level of our local co, we do have the first pricing was only prepaid pricing. You had to prepay every minute you used the cars.
No, I'm not talking
No.
about that. I'm talking about your initiative.
But in good governance, you can have revenue streams for investment goods. And I'll do the rest of the discussion later because I see that the rest is like, okay, anybody else? Sorry.
Well, so I have a question,
Yeah.
which is to do with winning in the marketplace. Because there's most of the big car manufacturers
Yes.
are getting into the idea that they're going to have mobility as a service one way or another. And there's going to be, and there already is, vertical integration between solar panels and battery on wheels.
Yes, true.
Which is what the Elon Musk model is. So how, and at least up until now, car sharing has been a natural monopoly. In London, for instance, it's basically the Zipcar, but you need to have a density of cars available
Yes,
for
true.
people. That turns into a natural monopoly. So how are you going to win in the market? What is the comparative advantage that you have?
Okay, I'll answer that question. First of all, I'm not interested in stealing market share from my competitors because it's a new and very growing market. So let the market share that they have, let it be theirs. I don't mind, I don't care. There's a whole bunch of non-users yet, non-car sharers yet. I'm aiming at them in specific niches. Secondly, growth is needed, but there is such a thing as scale optimization. So you can't be too small, but you can't be too big either, because then actually your effectiveness and your ROI starts to drop again. So your cost structure, flips. So actually, I don't need to be the biggest. I just need to be big enough. That's thirdly. So market share is not a problem as such for Partago nor for the mobility factory. Secondly, we have like no churn because the threshold to start to become because you have to buy shares and prepay minutes and whatnot. So this and you never drove an electric car, so I can tell you we have a community manager that does nothing but test drives and explanations and happy moments and blah blah blah. So the cost of acquiring a client is high. The threshold is there, but once somebody starts in this, the relationship with the client is like a very long one. So I'm not interested in having a quick client base for 20,000, 30,000 cars, and then all of a sudden they're gone because the next one's coming with some other fashionable blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. And then what was another question?
Well, it's just how are you going to win in the market? So for instance, my understanding of the BMW strategy is to have a brand relationship with somebody across their entire life. So when they are young and urban, then it's about car sharing. And then when they get older and they become basically a chauffeur for their children, then you have a car on the driveway.
Yeah.
But it's a BMW relationship the entire time. So they're looking for that long-term relationship, but different modes of mobility service across that.
You wouldn't have a BMW Hertz.
Yeah. So that's where a lot of the car players are going.
Yes, but that the car is still the purpose to them. The car is only a means to me. I organize sustainable mobility. Whether, for example, one of my big dreams is that we get power enough to invite European car building, decentralized production of cars, European cars, that are capable of serving the purpose. So we have to break in through the whole chain of how the battery is done. How about a Fairphone battery for cars? I mean, just saying. So we still have a long way to go. But I'm not afraid as such from the market. I'm afraid I can't find enough capital and time to actually serve that market. So my big constraint is not the market, it's not operational issues, it's capital, capital, capital.
Sure.
We always seem to talk about how the individual can get around in one vehicle. How about how we put the whole thing together that we can move our infrastructure around that we need in a better way?
Yes. So it's true. Actually, we started out as a car sharing initiative, e-car sharing initiative, but soon enough, a whole bunch of stuff, not only people, and also more collective forms of transport, came to us and say, hey, can we run on the platform? And I said, well, not yet. But it's true. For example, we changed our price model, and now you have a reservation cost. We want to avoid very short use of the car. We want to avoid, just taking the car from A to B and leaving it there. We are having now a project in Leuven to include electric cargo bikes. We're thinking about, because we're going to have a continuum between an electric bike on 2 wheels and the full option Tesla whatever. There's a continuum of objects that are no longer cars, but objects with 2 wheels, 3 wheels, 4 wheels, whatever, for all kinds of purposes and for all kinds of target groups. And we want indeed to be able to make the platform universal enough that somebody in your space doesn't need the typical car sharing car, but a whole other object, as long as it's about sharing in a cooperative way, and it's about because we're so specific about energy, electricity, renewables. I mean, that has to have a connection. But other than that, fine. But we're not there yet, darling.
I think the model can be adapted to
absolutely.
areas. I mean, specifically where we are, we're in a rural location. And people need a vehicle to, for example, move their crops from harvest to market. And that seems like a really useful service to offer. Thank you.
Why Europe and how does membership, given Brexit, affect, how does UK fit into your membership model?
Yes, I know. The problem is that
We're idiots, that's the problem.
Okay. I did say, but the thing is that we had to find a legal way to combine as many different kinds of structures, because of course not every country has the same set of laws or the same structures, cooperative structures, legal structures, etc. First of all. Secondly, maybe there's a bias in terms of having Brussels as our personal Washington DC, that it was like quite normal to choose the European level and also actually lobby together with Coop EU cooperatives EU to work on the European level to kind of harmonize, some of my detailed problems. And thirdly, I don't know if the UK is up and running and ready to join us. I don't know. Because I come here in London quite often. I have a foster son here, no problem. But London is England, and England is the UK. So I'm a bit weary, not knowing where that leaves us.
I was very tangentially involved in Zipcar. I met them when they came into the UK. I mean, in London, there was basically licensing about who would get the parking spaces, streetcar or Zipcar. And streetcar were effectively a copycat who got there first, with the intention of being bought by Zipcar, which is what happened. So across London now, basically the local authority parking spaces are licensed pretty much only to Zipcar, and then you've got the other ones trying to fit in between. And so you have the nature of the competition. This is what I was trying to say about the actual monopoly. It can be very difficult to have the
thing is, we have in Belgium, we had the Cambio, which is a car sharing that originated in Germany, and that was an actual monopoly too. They were so lazy in terms of creating good service for the clients or even keeping clean the cars, that one of the frustration was that we started it because of frustration. I'm a car sharing person for over 20 years, So my last car I ever owned just as a private person, I shared it already, like in a peer-to-peer thing. So, but Cambio was like your natural, and we came about, and the first year everybody said, yeah. And then the second year everybody said, hell, Partago is here to stay. Fuck, they go European. Oh. And all of a sudden, all the electric cars that they had, and they didn't have many, were changed into exactly the same car as we use. All of a sudden, we have on our website a counter saying how many users we have, how many CO2 we set. All of a sudden, they did exactly the same on the website. All of a sudden, they didn't have free float. You had to park the car exactly at the location where it was. All of a sudden, they started free float cars. They're kind of in pursuit, but not in a structural strategic way. So I'm kind of laughing. I'm saying, hell, you know, try whatever.
Just as our time is about to finish,
Yeah.
I'm a little reluctant to ask this question, but it might be a long answer, but maybe a short answer. So what's coming down the track is autonomous vehicles.
Yes.
And one of the visions for autonomous vehicles is that basically we don't own a car. Nobody owns a car. We just have fleets circling and waiting and then responding to
That's an
people.
illusion.
So, what is your...
It's an illusion.
Okay. So
Because in fact, it doesn't take in as so many technological and visions and solutions. It doesn't take in the nitty-gritty details of very deeply ingrained human behavior. And we have to work not against human behavior or human reflexes or emotions or fears or whatever it is. We have to work with them. I mean, it's means to purpose. Economy has to serve the human. It is not, technology and economy itself is not a purpose in itself. It just means to, you know, having a world that is less dysfunctional than this one.
on the prospect of a world less dysfunctional than this one, which is better than today, not necessarily like Europe. But anyway, let us end our time there. Thank you very much, Lucie.